We're here at Radio Row in Los Angeles, checking in with Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer. Albert, it's been a couple weeks since George Paton has named Nathaniel Hackett the head coach for the Denver Broncos. What are your thoughts on the hire?
I think it's reflective of the process. They really did want to go through and look at candidates for their merits right now. And George obviously had the relationship with Dan Quinn going in, and I think DQ was the favorite, and I think it's a credit to Nathaniel Hackett that he was able to kind of put himself in a position where they felt like that was the way they wanted to go. And I think one of the best things about bringing in somebody like Nathaniel is the way that he relates with people and the way he's going to be able to put together a staff, and a lot of those guys are already in place, with Ejiro likely coming from the Rams and obviously Outen coming from the Packers, where there are going to be different ideas and there are going to be people from different backgrounds, and that's sort of what he had in Green Bay. And so I think a lot of just being able to get the most out of every individual person is important. Being able to build the culture. He's such a positive, energetic guy, and I'm sure that rubbed off on you guys when you saw it at the press conference. And then I think that the player development piece of it, because there's so many young players in the Broncos roster right now, and you look at the amount of promising guys in year 2 and year 3, I think he'll be good in all of those areas. And then maybe there's a bonus if a certain quarterback becomes available.
Why do you think Denver was really the right fit for Nathaniel, as we've seen him, in previous hiring cycles?
Yeah, I think so much of this comes down to the general manager head coach relationship, and I know that's simplifying it a little bit, but I think having the right mix with your general manager is so important for a head coach, and we've seen that tear organizations apart when it doesn't go the right way. And so I think the ability to kind of fit your head coach into what your general manager is doing is important, especially if they don't have background together. And so that's why I think the interview process, and that's why I think that was so important, why I brought it up a couple times already, is I think it was really important for those two to figure out whether or not they were going to be able to work together, and whether or not one guy's philosophy fits the other guy's philosophy, because that's another area where Quinn had something on Hackett, where Quinn had worked with George before in Miami. And so, I think that's the most important thing now, is the coaches, and I think you've seen it with people who've come from that tree, whether it's Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan. They'll go through a process over the next few weeks of teaching the personnel people what they're looking for in every position. And it's going to be very specific in what Nathaniel is looking for and what his coaches are looking for, because that's the way that they do it. And then, it's going to be a matter of somebody like George going and being able to execute finding those players. But I think that's why, Nathaniel had options, and you look at the different places that he interviewed, and the fact that he jumped on Denver, I think really was reflective of the way that he and George clicked. For the same reason George was willing to move off of DQ to go to Nathaniel, Nathaniel was willing to kind of move faster and accelerate the process and not wait for other opportunities to take the Denver job.
Well, speaking of George Paton, how would you really evaluate his first year as general manager here?
Promising. It's hard to say after 1 year. You don't want to draw any conclusions, but you do look at the rookie class, and that's a good place to start. And Patrick Surtain, if Micah Parsons didn't have a historic rookie year, I think Patrick Surtain would have been the defensive rookie of the year, and you're able to get him at the bottom of the top 10. And then I look at kind of the way different pieces of the team came together, and where they are going forward now, just from a cap standpoint, from a draft pick standpoint, being able to get what you were able to get for Von Miller, which increases your capital there. I think they're in a really good spot going forward. And I really think, I'm joking about Aaron Rodgers a little bit there, but the Broncos really do have something to offer a veteran quarterback now, if that opportunity becomes available to them. In a lot of ways, it's not unlike 2012. And I know that they feel that way. And, you look at the young team that they had in 2012, where Peyton Manning could look at it and say, I get to throw to Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker, they're ascending. Throw to Julius Thomas, he's ascending. The defense has Von Miller, a young Chris Harris. There's a lot to build with here, and I can bring guys with me. A veteran quarterback can look at the Broncos and legitimately say the same thing about guys like Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler and Javonte Williams and Noah Fant, and then look on defense and see, just like Peyton saw Von Miller and Chris Harris, Patrick Surtain and Bradley Chubb. So, I think that they're really set up, and they're set up in a good way to sell what they have to the right veteran quarterback if that quarterback becomes available.
Kind of going off that, a ton of cap space, lots of draft picks. What do you really expect from the Broncos this offseason?
I think they'll be aggressive. Like I think they've got the opportunity to be aggressive now. But I think a lot of it's going to be dictated by what they do at quarterback. And there's so much uncertainty right now across the league with what's going to happen. Is Russell Wilson going to be available? Is Aaron Rodgers going to be available? Will you throw your hat in the ring for Deshaun Watson? So I think there are a bunch of teams that are in the same spot as the Broncos are, which is with some uncertainty at quarterback. The draft class doesn't look great at the position. And a lot of it's going to come down to the volume of veteran quarterbacks available. Like we know Deshaun Watson's going to be available. We know Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be available. Will Russell Wilson be available? That's unclear. Will Aaron Rodgers be available? That's unclear. So, I think they've got like a good amount of capital to build. If you get the veteran quarterback, you're probably going to have to give up some of that capital so you become more active in free agency. If you don't, if there isn't a quarterback that you're willing to get aggressive for, maybe you run it back with Teddy, and now you've got a bunch of draft picks to work with. So I think so much of it's just going to hinge on what they do at quarterback. And if they do get that veteran quarterback, then I'd expect they become really aggressive in free agency to put pieces around them.
Well, Albert, appreciate your time and insight. I hope you have a great rest of your week in LA.
All right, thanks, Eddie.